Imagine a structural engineer trying to build a bridge, but instead of steel and concrete, their building materials are molten lipid fats, highly acidic liquid, and a living, breathing foundation made of yeast.
Right, which sounds like an absolute nightmare to build with.
Exactly. And on top of that, they have to subject this incredibly fragile bridge to like 800 degrees of blistering radiant heat without the whole thing just collapsing into a soggy mess.
Yeah, it's an incredibly volatile environment when you really look at it. I mean, you're balancing hydration, chemistry, and thermodynamics all on a flat disk of dough.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping into a fascinating piece of source material today titled Wicked Pizza Pies, The Art of the Perfect Norco Slice.
It's a great read.
It really is. And our mission today is to essentially deconstruct the anatomy of a truly perfect pizza. And we're using this beloved local spot in Norco, California as our main case study.
Which is a bold claim, honestly.
Right. And actually, I need to stop you there before we even get into the dough, because you're calling this a physics problem and an engineered system. But I mean, we're talking about pizza here.
Sure.
It's just dough and cheese. People will literally end lifelong friendships over whether pineapple belongs on it or if Chicago deep dish is basically just a casserole.
Oh, totally. The debates get vicious.
They do. Pizza is like notoriously the most subjective food on the planet. So how can a single source or even a single restaurant seriously claim to define a universally perfect slice? Aren't we just completely overcomplicating a late night snack?
It's a completely fair challenge. But that subjectivity you're talking about is exactly what the source sidesteps.
What do you mean?
Well, the text doesn't argue for specific toppings at all. It takes absolutely no stance in the great pepperoni versus sausage debate or the pineapple issue.
Okay, good. That's a relief.
Yeah, instead it establishes this really objective baseline. It defines perfection strictly through technique, texture, and structural integrity.
So it's less about the paint colors and entirely about the canvas and the frame holding it all together.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Yeah.
Think about the crust as your foundation, the sauce as a solvent, and the cheese as a literal weight on top.
A weight.
Okay?
Yeah.
A perfect pizza isn't defined by what goes on it, but rather how those physical elements interact with each other. The source lays out these surprisingly strict core pillars for a great slice of Wicked Pizza Pies.
Right, like a well-cooked crust that's crisp outside but still soft inside.
Exactly, along with a balanced sauce, fresh toppings, and meticulous cheese distribution.
Yeah, that word distribution, that caught my eye in the text too, because it's not just, grabbing a massive fistful of mozzarella and chucking it at the dough.
No, not at all.
The source highlights the very real dangers of imbalance here. Like, let's talk about the sauce acting as a solvent. Tomatoes are basically just mostly water and acid, right?
Right, they are.
So if you apply too much sauce, you are essentially pouring a puddle of acidic water directly onto your structural foundation.
And that's where capillary action takes over. The dough basically acts like a sponge.
Oh.
Yeah, it absorbs all that moisture way before the heat of the oven can even evaporate it.
So you just get mush.
Complete structural collapse. You get this soggy, gummy layer trapped between the cooked crust underneath and the cheese on top.
Gross.
And then on the flip side, cheese is heavy. I mean, it's incredibly rich in milk, fats, and oils.
So if you use too much of it,
It becomes a literal barrier. It traps all the steam underneath it, and it weighs the whole slice down until eating it just becomes a physical chore.
it's exactly like a badly mixed song.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, think about listening to a track where the producer just turned the bass up way too high. The bass is the cheese in this scenario.
Right.
If the cheese is turned up to an 11, it just blows out your speakers.
Yeah.
You completely lose the vocals, which would be the tang of the sauce in this case.
And you lose the melody, too.
Exactly. The melody being that subtle fermented yeast flavor of the crust. Everything just gets completely drowned out by this one overwhelming heavy element. But when it's mixed perfectly, you can hear every single instrument.
And to take that a step further, let's look at why your palate actually craves that specific mix.
Okay, lay it on me.
When a kitchen like Wicked Pizza Pies takes the time to measure ingredients and really control that audio mix, so to speak, they are doing it to ensure a consistent chemical reaction in your mouth.
Because the brain loves harmony.
Exactly. The human brain craves that harmony. When you take a bite, the sharp acidity of the tomato sauce is specifically meant to cut directly through the heavy lipid richness of the dairy.
And then the crunch of the crust comes in.
Right, the carbohydrate provides a physical textural contrast to the soft cheese. Deliberate mathematical measuring is really the only way to replicate that exact chemical harmony in every single bite.
Which honestly brings us to a major pivot point in the source material, because achieving that exact song-like balance, that chemical harmony, it requires some serious culinary execution. It's not easy.
No, and the text draws a very sharp line here between real craftsmanship and just mass production.
It really does. It explicitly contrasts these properly crafted pies with mass-produced, frozen, or, pre-packaged alternatives.
Right.
And craftsmanship here isn't just a marketing buzzword they throw around. It's a measurable set of variables. It requires really intense attention to dough preparation and very precise baking temperatures.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate again for a second.
Go for it.
Because a lot of people view pizza as just, quick, cheap, fast food. Why do we need to elevate it to the level of craftsmanship? I mean, can you really taste the difference between a dough that was supposedly crafted versus one that was just made in some giant commercial commissary?
You absolutely can.
Right.
And it all comes down to the science of fermentation and hydration.
Okay, unpack that.
Well, when we talk about hydration in dough, we're talking about the specific water-to-flour ratio. A mass-produced dough often relies on chemical conditioners to fake a soft texture.
Because they don't have time to let it rest. Exactly. But true craftsmanship relies on biological time. Yeast is a living organism. When you let dough ferment properly, the yeast actually consumes the sugars in the flour.
And that produces carbon dioxide gas.
Gas and lactic acid.
So the gas creates the bubbles and the acid creates the actual flavor.
Yes, precisely. And when a highly hydrated, properly fermented dough hits a massive amount of heat, the water inside those little dough pockets rapidly turns to steam.
And it expands.
It expands violently, pushing the dough upward to create that airy, charred, crisp yet soft texture. A prepackaged pizza might be able to chemically simulate a decent flavor profile, sure.
But it falls flat on texture.
Right. It simply cannot simulate the complex physical architecture of freshly prepared dough reacting to intense high heat.
And the text actually leans into that heat variable pretty heavily. It points out that Wicked Pizza Pies offers wood-fired pizza in Norco.
Which is huge.
Yeah, they treat the heat source itself as an ingredient. And that changes the thermodynamics of the cook entirely, doesn't it?
Oh, completely. A standard commercial oven relies mostly on convection, so just hot air circulating around the food. But a wood-fired oven is a totally different beast.
How so?
Well, you have conductive heat coming directly from the stone floor, which instantly blisters the bottom of the crust. And then you also have intense radiant heat bouncing off the dome, cooking the toppings from the top down.
Which triggers the Maillard reaction.
Exactly.
For those listening, that's the chemical process where amino acids and reducing sugars brown under high heat. It's what gives you those complex, slightly charred, savory flavors on the crust and even on the cheese.
And you simply cannot get that specific chemical reaction in a standard 500-degree conveyor belt pizza oven.
Right, which goes back to your question about why we treat this as craftsmanship rather than fast food.
Yeah, because when you treat pizza purely as fast food, you are accepting a massive variance in quality. You're just rolling the dice every time you order. Controlling the hydration, the fermentation time, and the extreme thermodynamics of the oven, that is the only way to remove luck from the equation entirely. Craftsmanship basically guarantees that the pizza you order on a Tuesday is going to be just as structurally sound as the one you order on a busy Saturday.
But taking that level of scientific care with dough hydration, in a vacuum is one thing. Doing it at scale every single Tuesday night for an entire town, that changes the math entirely.
Oh, it's a huge operational challenge.
And that actually brings us to the community of Norco itself. Because if craftsmanship and fresh ingredients are the scientific theory of a good pizza, the ultimate proof of that theory is how a local ecosystem actually responds to it out in the real world.
Definitely. The source places a heavy emphasis on this local environment. It describes Norco as a place where the locals highly value authenticity.
It's very tight-knit, right?
Yeah, it's a tight-knit community where you really can't fake quality for very long. Word gets around.
The text notes that Wicked Pizza Pies has earned its trust through consistency and dependable service, not through, flashy billboards or some million-dollar social media ad campaign.
Right. Word of mouth plays the major role here.
Yeah. The article specifically says that when families recommend a pizza place to each other, it reflects, quote, genuine satisfaction. They even mention that customers actively call out the ingredient quality and the consistent experiences in their Yelp reviews.
And honestly, a Yelp review praising consistency is incredibly rare.
Is it? Oh,
Oh,
wow.
yeah. People usually only leave reviews when they're either blown away by some crazy novelty or they're just furiously disappointed by a total failure.
That's a great point. I only review things when I'm mad.
Right. So praising a restaurant for just doing exactly what it promises over and over again speaks volumes about the actual operations going on in the kitchen.
Think about the sociology of word of mouth in a town like Norco. It's basically a secret club. Because a family's weekly pizza night is a sacred ritual. If you are a parent and you are willing to risk your family's Friday night dinner on a specific product, that pizza has survived the ultimate culinary stress test.
Oh, absolutely.
You do not mess with a family's pizza night. If the crust is soggy just once, you lose that family for a year.
The psychological stakes are surprisingly high. A failed ritual causes disproportionate frustration.
Oh, I've been there. It ruins the whole weekend.
Right. And this highlights a really crucial distinction the text makes between genuine satisfaction and modern marketing.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, in an era of algorithm-driven food trends and just manufactured hype, a community's quiet, consistent patronage is literally the most honest review a business can ever get. Marketing might get someone in the door on a Friday night,
Sure.
but only that rigorous, measured balance of hydration, acidity, and heat can get them to come back 50 times and bring all their neighbors with them.
So how does a restaurant actually adapt that strict physics experiment into the messy, chaotic daily lives of a community? Because a beloved local spot isn't just about the food sitting perfectly on a plate in a controlled dining room.
No, it has to travel.
Right. And the source dives into the logistics of how Wicked Pizza Pies actually serves Norco, and it outlines a very multifaceted approach.
They do. They offer various dining experiences depending on the customer's use case. There is the dine-in option, obviously, if you want the food straight out of the wood-fired oven.
Which is the ideal way to eat it.
Of course. But they also lean heavily into takeout, delivery, and online ordering just for pure convenience. They have a family pizza option, casual pizza night guides, and even catering packages.
Okay, wait, the catering and takeout aspect is where I really want to stop and look at the engineering for a second, because this is where most pizzas completely fail.
Oh, it's the graveyard of good pizza.
Yeah. Keeping a pizza crisp on a metal tray in the dining room is one thing, but when you box up a pizza for takeout, you are essentially putting it in a tiny cardboard steam room.
It is an exponential increase in difficulty. We talked earlier about the crust acting like a sponge for the tomato sauce.
Right.
Well, when you close that cardboard lid, you immediately trap all the latent heat and moisture that's evaporating off the 800-degree dough and the molten cheese.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the crust instantly starts absorbing that ambient steam from the air inside the box.
Moisture migration. It's the absolute enemy of the Maillard reaction we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. So the fact that they have designed catering options specifically to maintain their high quality for large groups, that is a massive operational flex.
How do they even do it?
Well, managing heat retention for a huge crowd without turning the crust into a wet sponge requires a really deep understanding of how your food travels. It means constantly adjusting your bake times, managing exactly how quickly the boxes are vented, and deeply understanding the thermal mass of your ingredients.
Man, if you want to see the structural engineering in person, you can't just conceptualize it from an article. You actually have to go try it.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, the article gives the address. They're at 1762 4th Street in Norco, California. Zip code is 92860.
You can also just call them.
Oh, yeah. The number is 951-374-0065. Or literally just go to wickedpizzapeas.com and order a case study in moisture control and thermodynamics for your own family.
It really is a masterclass.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting how they bridge that gap between old school word-of-mouth craftsmanship and modern accessibility.
What do you mean by that?
Well, alongside their physical storefront, they maintain a really solid digital footprint. They share updates on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube.
Oh, wow. They're everywhere.
They are, but they use the modern digital tools not to manufacture fake hype, but just to stay genuinely connected with the community they're actively feeding.
It's like the perfect synthesis of a neighborhood staple, and it really brings this whole journey full circle for us.
It really does.
Because we started by looking at the strict mechanics of a slice, treating the crust as a foundation, the sauce as an acidic solvent that needs super careful managing, and the cheese as a heavy, measured component rather than just a blanket you throw on top.
Right.
And then we moved through the deep science of craftsmanship, seeing how proper hydration and the extreme thermodynamics of a wood-fired oven fundamentally alter the entire texture of the dough.
And then we saw how that strict discipline in the kitchen translates directly into sociological trust out in a real-world community. It proves that consistency isn't just some byproduct. It's the actual core engine of their business.
It's not magic, it's literally chemistry, physics, and rigorous consistency.
Looking at all this source material, it leaves you with a broader kind of lingering question.
Ooh, okay, what is it?
The text places such a heavy emphasis on the idea that genuine word of mouth beats flashy marketing. But in our current era, the restaurant industry is so heavily optimized for viral, visually outrageous social media aesthetics.
Oh, like the endless exaggerated cheese pulls.
Exactly. The giant stunt foods, coated in gold leaf, the dishes designed entirely just for a 5-second video.
Right.
It makes you wonder, will the local institutions that actually survive the next decade be those viral sensations? Or will they simply be the ones that quietly focus on the unglamorous, everyday consistency of just getting the crust-to-sauce ratio right every single time?
Wow, it is the ultimate showdown. The badly mixed pop song trying to go viral on an algorithm versus the perfectly engineered album that a whole town just listens to for the rest of their lives.
That's exactly it.
We really encourage you to keep this critical eye the next time you order from your own neighborhood spot. Think about the moisture inside the box.
Yeah, pay attention to the acidic mix of the sauce.
Notice the actual architecture holding your dinner together. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.